Hi, welcome to this video, and let me introduce myself. My name is Fabiola Beatrice Fordet Kosu with student number 202311020039. And before I begin my presentation, I would like to open with one question. Menurut kalian, what will I talk about in this video? So, the question that I just asked you is actually a code switch, which is the topic of my presentation. I'm going to explain about code switching in Indonesia and in this generation. So, what is code switching? Code switching happens when bilingual and multilingual people mix languages within a conversation, sentence, or even a single phrase while speaking. So the example is like when they code switch between sentences, it's gonna sound like, I'm going to the store, kamu mau ikut gak? Or if they code switch within one sentence, she gave me a present, tapi aku lupa bilang makasih. Why do learners or speakers code switch? They do this to fill gaps in vocabulary or grammar, to express something more easily or naturally, to connect culturally with others who understand both languages, to clarify or emphasize a point, or for comfort and confidence, especially in early stages of language learning. However, in language learning contexts, teachers and learners often use code switching in classroom to give instructions, to explain grammar, to translate keywords, or to make learners feel less anxious. Code switching in Indonesia. In Indonesia, code switching is very common linguistic practice, especially among bilingual and multilingual speakers who use Bahasa Indonesia, English, and local languages like Javanese, Sundanese, and etc. Code switching among Gen Z or millennials in Indonesia has become part of their identity and expression. It shows modernity, global awareness, and even sense of humor or irony. It is often used for emphasis, self-expression, or to create a certain tone or aesthetic in platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So an example that I can give from social media is, udah jam 3 pagi and I'm still overthinking. Please otak, stop mikir dulu. This kind of informal setting is not random. It follows a social and cultural cues. But in cultural insight perspective, in Indonesia, using English in conversation can also reflect one's educational background, signal urban or middle class identity, and sometimes can be seen as pretentious or if overused or forced. Usually in Indonesia we call it sak Inggris. So one example of a famous person that often code switch is Najwa Shihab. She's a journalist, TV host in Indonesia. Najwa Shihab is a well-known public figure in Indonesia who often code switches between Bahasa Indonesia and English, especially when speaking in interviews, hosting panels, or moderating youth discussions. So for example, in one of her talks about education reform, she said something like, kita perlu sistem pendidikan yang lebih fleksibel, one that encourages creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. Or in youth panel discussion, she said, aku ngerti kalian capek, but guys, we need to speak up. Kalau kita diam terus, siapa lagi yang akan mendorong perubahan? I am also taking a clip from Najwa Shihab's YouTube video titled Between Us Women to show more evidence that she code switches.
Tapi aku mau nanya deh, di dunia entertainment kan, dunia industri hiburan, itu kan aku merasa pasti ini ya, maksudnya keharusan untuk keep up dengan tren, keep up with the change, harusnya stay relevant, apalagi ada banyak pendatang-pendatang talent baru, gimana caranya supaya tetap ini, itu beban nggak sih?
Here is a transcript of her code switch. While speaking in Indonesian, she includes English words like entertainment, keep up, trend, keep up the change, and stay relevant. She includes these English words or phrases as an emphasis of terms that are commonly used in English. So why does she code switches? She does this to sound relatable and modern to younger listener and urban audiences, and also to emphasize certain key terms that are more commonly used in English, such as critical thinking or speak up, and also to match the bilingual fluency of her audience, especially students and young professionals. Najwa's code switching is a great example of how public figures in Indonesia use it strategically and naturally to engage different audiences. And so, my last question is code switching bad? Well, not at all. It is a normal part of a bilingual communication. It helps speakers express themselves more clearly, reduces anxiety, and support learning, and also builds social connection, especially among Gen Z. While overuse in formal settings, it may be inappropriate, but in most contexts, code switching shows language flexibility and should be seen as a strength, not a weakness. And so that wraps up my presentation. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.